Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to present this IPCC special report on climate change and land, which was adopted by all countries last August. So first of all, this report had 100 plus authors. You see there was a gender balance, also a balance between developed and developing countries. And we assessed about 7,000 scientific publications. And we got a very large number of comments from reviewers, about 30,000, and obviously we had to answer all those comments throughout the reviews. So let me start with considerations about greenhouse gas emissions and land. This report confirms that the emissions from the agriculture, forestry, and land use make up close to 25% of the total global emissions. But if you turn to methane, which is a powerful greenhouse gas with a higher radiative potential when you consider 20 years compared to the usual estimate of 100 years, land accounts for 44% of those emissions. And we know that the nitrogen we apply in agriculture is partly released to the environment, leading to large nitrous oxide emissions. And we point here the role of the grazing lands, because grazing lands account altogether with the different gases to about one half of the agricultural emissions. So when we turn at the mitigation potential in the global food system, we should first look at how much this food system emits. And when we consider a cross-sector approach, not only agriculture, but also the transportation, the agri-food industry, and so on, emissions from that sector account for around 30% of the total net anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. So we know many options to reduce those emissions from production to consumption, including reduction of food losses and waste. And so we will see that actually those options can also support adaptation. Options like soil carbon sequestration, agroforestry deliver co-benefits across land-based challenges. We will go back to this. And we see that in the literature there is a very large technical potential for mitigation, which ranges between 2.3 and 9.6 gigaton of CO2 equivalent per year by 2050. This report was committed to address the challenges of climate change adaptation, mitigation, but also land degradation, desertification, and food security. So we report that land degradation affects about 1/4 of the Earth's ice-free land area, and the causes are mainly with the unsustainable land management, with agriculture being a dominant driver. Climate change exacerbates the rate and magnitude of these land degradation processes, and obviously people living in the degraded areas are most affected. And we see that climate change has detrimental effects on the livelihoods, but also on the biodiversity habitats and on the infrastructures. So indeed, combating land degradation and desertification has strong benefits for climate, both in terms of adaptation and mitigation. And this can contribute also to the reduction in biodiversity loss and has positive spin-offs for sustainable development. Reducing desertification can improve soil fertility, increase carbon storage, and contribute to agricultural productivity and food security. So you see here some of the co-benefits between halting desertification and land degradation and climate change issues. This report comes with a strong warning message for food security because we see on this burning amber graph, we are already at 0.85 degrees Celsius global warming. We are already with infrequent price spikes that affect individual countries in terms of the food supply chains. But if we enter into a risky zone, which is 1.5 degrees Celsius warming, we see from the literature that it is likely we will get some periodic shocks across regions for food supply chains. And if we go beyond 2 degrees Celsius, then we get in sustained food supply disruptions globally. So the risks are extremely high in fact, with global warming for food security. There are also some problems with the nutritional quality of the crops because there are less micronutrients when you increase the atmospheric CO2 levels. So importantly, we've been reviewing the many options here in terms of sustainable land management and their co-benefits and trade-offs for mitigation, adaptation, land degradation and desertification, food security, but also biodiversity, groundwater stress and water quality. So this is a big table. I do not have time to comment, but if you have a look at soil carbon sequestration, increased soil organic carbon content, which actually, oh no, sorry, this was the wrong button. You can see it, a line which is actually with all cells in blue, which means that we have positive impacts for all challenges of that option. So indeed, this option of soil carbon sequestration is important and comes with mostly co-benefits. This is why we could map actually that the co-benefits of deploying increased soil organic carbon content would come on many regions in the world, and we do not see regions where there would be significant trade-offs. In contrast, deploying bioenergy with carbon capture and sequestration may have some significant trade-offs in regions where we have problems with food security, with biodiversity, and also with water quality. This is because when we have some options linked to bioenergy and afforestation, they may have negative impacts on food security, biodiversity, and land degradation. However, these impacts are much bigger when the deployment is at large scale. This means that when there is severe competition for land between food production and bioenergy in high population scenarios, the deployment should be limited beyond something which is between 0.1 and 1 million kilometers square. If we think about low population scenarios, the deployment could be actually on larger land areas. So we have already commented that food losses and waste contribute to the greenhouse gas emissions, possibly 8 to 10% of those emissions. We know that changes in diets could be very powerful also for mitigation, and this means that if we have consumption of animal products, of meat, that stays within the recommendations for health of the World Health Organization, we would actually get benefits for the health but also for the climate. And diversification of the diets with more fruit, vegetables, protein crops and nuts could actually support the diversification of production systems, the storage of carbon in the soils. So the food transitions towards healthy diets could release millions of kilometers square of land with co-benefits for the environment. And this comes, however, with large uncertainty in terms of the mitigation potential, up to 8 gigatons of CO2 equivalents. Finally, obviously, this report says that delaying climate change mitigation and adaptation measures will have increasingly negative effects. Late action would reduce the potential of the sustainable land management options. Also, it would have irreversible impacts on some ecosystems. So indeed, rapid action on climate change mitigation and adaptation is needed. There are co-benefits with sustainable development. This can reduce the risk to millions of people from climate extremes. It can favor the food security. It can come with sustainable development. And if we are to postpone the greenhouse gas emission reductions from all sectors, this will lead to ever greater economic impacts for many countries in many parts of the world. So, thank you.